Hello, my name is Joshua Young. Today you're going to be learning about how to work with your children when it comes to prepping for an audition. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a feature film, a television show, or a commercial. You should basically have the same blueprint when it comes to working with your child for any type of audition. The first thing to do is to work with them on slating. Now, slating is a very simple process, but there's a lot of hidden reasons why a slate exists. What a slate simply is you introducing yourself to the camera, saying your name, your agency, the role that you're auditioning for, and so on. In this case, it'll be your child. So it'll look something like this. Hi, my name is Joshua Young. I'm represented by Sky Talent, going for the role of Michael. That's it. That's all there is to it. However, there's some tricks in there that you really should keep aware of and work with your child on. For example, you can do a smiley professional version, which is something like this. Hi, my name is Joshua Young. I'm represented by Sky Talent, and I'm going for the role of Michael. And that's it. Or you could interact more with the camera. You can imagine somebody behind that camera, preferably your child's best friend, and tell them, imagine you're talking to them, and imagine that, you're only relating to them on the topic. What will end up happening is it'll feel more personal. And on top of that, you can layer one more tip, which I have to credit the acting coach Jeb Beach for, which is be there in a helping way. You see, the people auditioning your child are actually very nervous. They're probably as nervous as your child because they're trying to find the right character, the right actor to play the character for whatever project they're working on, and there's a lot of pressure and stress about that. So if the child seems stressed out, so will they. So the best thing you can do is to give them this style of, I'm here to help you when you're doing your slate. So instead of literally saying, I'm here to help you, I'm here to help you, I'm here to help you, work with your child on that tone of, I'm here to help you, but put it to the words of your name, your agency, and your role. So instead of it being like this, hi, my name is Joshua Young, represented by Sky Talent, going for the role of Michael. It's more like this. Hi, my name is Joshua Young. I'm represented by Sky Talent, and I'm going for the role of Michael. That might still be not the best slate I could ever do because I'm also trying to teach at the same time. But you can see the difference. The I'm here to help you feelings are going to make a slate so much stronger, feel so personal, and we actually see the child's personality. The next thing to keep in mind when it comes to auditions are, especially for commercial auditions, they might ask your child, tell us something about yourself. Now, that can be a bit of a tricky question because some parents think that means, tell us about, the recent acting things this child has done, or basically say, tell your child to say, I haven't done much acting, but I'm really excited for the role. Those aren't what they're looking for. What they're looking for is to know the child's personality. And by asking somebody, tell me about yourself, we see more of who they truly are if they talk about their hobbies, any trips they took. So those are the best things to say. Like if your child just got a dog or a cat, that's the topic. So tell your child, okay, they might ask you, tell us about yourself. Why don't you talk about your cat that you just got or your dog you just got? And same thing goes when it comes to, maybe you went on a trip recently, or maybe your child just won an award at school. Things like that. Anything that's happened in the past few months, or if nothing's happened, then you can tell your child, why don't you talk about how your favorite thing to do is read under a tree and eat popsicles. Doesn't really matter. Whatever brings out their personality, and it has to be something they love to talk about, something they probably annoy you by talking about too much. That's what they really should talk about in the audition, because it brings out their personality, and it tells the director and the casting director and the producer, more about your child than just a regular audition would. Tip number 1, make sure you don't get into a essay style or exam style format when it comes to working on the script with your child. The most important thing you can do is give them play right away. If they feel that this is homework, then they're not going to be really excited to do it in the first place. But even adult actors shouldn't treat a scene or an audition like it's an essay. It's not about actually getting every word correctly. It is about that, but if that's your focus, you're not going to be in character, you're not going to be thinking the right things, you're not going to be in an emotional state. So you have to trust you're going to know the lines and you're going to know the words. You don't have to spend countless hours memorizing text when you should be spending that time putting emotional context to that text. And what you'll end up finding is when you recall the emotion, and when the emotion comes up, the right words come up. It sounds like, oh, that might be a little bit too advanced. Every age group can do it. Every age group naturally does it. And it doesn't matter how good or bad a memory you have, it always works. So the first thing you should do, in my opinion, and from my experience with working with every age group of children, is you need to take the scene and run it with your child, and don't come to any conclusions. For the first 20 or 30 minutes of your rehearsal time, don't come to any conclusions whatsoever. Just simply go through the scene and tell them, react any which way you want to react. Don't bother, don't try to figure anything out. Don't try to be like, well, how does your character feel here? Even if you feel your child is getting everything completely wrong, really let them explore it. Let them figure things out. But let them go by their gut. Don't get into a conversation about the text. Play with the text. Go, okay, well, would you come in from this doorway? Okay, well, let's do that. Come in from this doorway. And they don't have to start memorizing the text right away. Their head should be buried in the text and in the script most of the time, more times than you actually think would end up happening. And you'll end up finding that they'll know the text so easily when the stress isn't on the text. The stress, and there's no stress at all, but the play and the exploration is on the character and is on the scene. So after the first 30 or 45 minutes, it's really good to take a break, normally a long break. I'd say another 30 or 45 minutes, and this goes for both child and adult actors. You really want to take a rest. Why? Because that's how your brain saves the information. Your brain doesn't save information if you keep going on and on and on and on. This is pure neuroscience here, is when you rest, that thing you just did will start to save in the brain. That's why, one of the best times to actually do your scenes is about half an hour before you go to sleep, because your sleep is going to help save that information into the long-term part of your brain. And if you have a few days before your audition, then you really should do it one day, for a few hours on and off with breaks, and then that night do it one more time, and then go to sleep, and then the next day go for it. A lot of actors will always note the same thing. They'll say, I had an audition, and it was the day before I worked on it, and then I did the audition, but the next day I really remembered everything better. Well, that was because they've had rest and it started to get stored better in their memory. So this works with every single person, no matter, again, how good or bad their memory is. So make sure you have 30 to 45 minutes of work time at most, especially if they're 7 to 9 years old. You might want to take that down to about 10 to 15 minutes of work, and then about 20 minutes or 30 minutes of a break. And the same but if they're about 10 to 12 or older, then you can start going a little bit longer with 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes break, and then go back to 30 minutes. And the break should be a very good break. It should be go out and play. It could be play video games. It could be watch something else, but you want to rest the brain. You don't want to give it another intense activity similar to this activity as far as intensity goes and memorization. So you don't want your child to then study for a test, then go back to working on the scene. That's going to be too much studying for the child. They haven't technically had a break from anything yet. After the first practice, which was 30 minutes roughly if they're age 10 to 12 or up, or if they're 7 to 9, it was probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes depending, and they've had their break, and you're about to do the second round of rehearsing with them. What you want to do now is you want to go over the scene with them again, and again and again, but not in a repetitive, okay, do it the same way. Oh, I like how you do that every single time. None of that. Those are all actual pitfalls. Those are all traps when it comes to the acting world, because then your child becomes undirectable. When you've stuck to a certain way of doing it, the child cannot do it any other way. What you want to do is you want that child to get into the zone of the right emotions, and so anytime they do it, no matter what, this scene, this child is supposed to be frustrated, for example. Well, frustrated is a lot of different ways to do it. So if they're being honest emotionally in the scene, that's what we want. It doesn't have to be that particular thing they did at that moment when they looked at that particular thing needs to stay there no matter what. No, that creates a more rigid performance. So that's actually a bonus. I wasn't even planning on talking about that. So in the second round, though, while you're going through, the scene with them, really start focusing on the listening part. It's not so much their lines. They always say acting is reacting. That's true. What you want to do is you want your child to be really listening and ask them, how do you feel when I say these lines to you? Not for the character your child is auditioning for. You're playing the other character, let's say character B. and your child's character is character A. Ask them how they feel when character B says this to them. And there's no right answer for the fact of whatever. There's no right answer. It's whatever they're feeling, and if they're not feeling anything, then that's the right feeling. Any feeling is the right feeling, so long as they're connected with their true self. All right? So ask them how they're feeling when so-and-so says this to them. Then I would have them stand up, because there's a little bit of energy there, and just say the B character's lines. Don't get them to say the A characters, which is their character. Don't you speak the A character lines. Speak the B character lines to them and say, now just think about it. Don't forget to breathe and really feel. How do you feel when someone says that? And what that's going to do is that's going to turn on their listening skills like adrenaline shots. They're going to be so focused, so listening, and they're going to be really thinking how they're feeling and things like that. And that's going to really change the next stage of the acting process for them. They're really going to then be in a reactionary way of acting than an acting way of acting, which can be too much acting. So basically what's then going to happen is you're going to go over the scene with them again, and at that point they're going to be listening more and connecting more with you than they are going to be worrying about what they say. Because we can see acting when it is, well, bad, essentially. But when an actor is thinking in their head, what's my next line, we can see that. That can be seen on screen. And when the actor is showing us emotion rather than feeling it, we can see that too. And it doesn't feel good. And the audience doesn't respond positively to that. So real acting is feeling emotion and really listening to the other person, not showing emotion and waiting for your line. There's two traps that parents, child actors, adult actors, every type of actor falls into. And trap number one is right and wrong. What is the right way to do this scene? What is the right way to do this character? What is the wrong way to do this scene? What is the wrong way to do this character? You wouldn't ask a famous painter, what's the right way to paint this thing? Because painting is an art, so is acting, and so is interpretations of the script. The directors and producers and the casting directors want to see your child because they want to see how your child's personality, their own unique personality, will fit this role. There's other reasons they want to see your child, but from all of the reasons you can actually control, outside of things like, are they the right height? Are they not the right height? Is their hair too curly? Blah, blah, blah. That is what you can control, is their unique personality, and making sure that that's in pretty much every single audition that comes out there. So the idea that something is the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it is the wrong direction. I like to think of it, and over the years I've pretty much figured out that it's always a zone that you definitely want it to be in. After you've gone through the scene a few times with your child, you'll know the zone, or also could be called the tone, of the actual scene itself. And that tone is the emotional zone that you want your child to be in. So it's okay if they get a little angrier than normal at this moment in the script, or a little sadder at this moment, and you work on the zone in and out, but you don't try to do it exactly this way no matter what, because again, that creates a situation where they're not flexible, and that means they can't take direction, and they can't take switching things up. The next thing is, it's not about getting the lines right. I've said this before, I'll say this a million times in all of my classes and workshops, and I've been a casting assistant for up-teen amounts of years. The one thing we hate is when an actor comes in and their focus is on their lines. Their focus should be on being in this moment. I had a friend call me up once, and she was very nervous for a big audition she was about to do. And I said to her, and the big name director was there, big name producer was going to be there, all the pressure was on, all of that stuff. And I said, what's the scene? And she said, well, the scene, I'm breaking up with my boyfriend at a coffee shop. Great. You're not auditioning. You're not going to be working, with this director or producer. You're breaking up with your boyfriend in a coffee shop. That's your job. That's all you have to do, is break up with your boyfriend at a coffee shop. So if you're thinking, what's my next line, as opposed to, how do I want this person to feel, then it's going to be a harder road, basically. In the waiting room, or even before you even get to the studio where they're going to be doing the casting auditions from, One thing I hear a lot from actors of every age group is, well, I need to make sure I'm confident going in. No, you don't. Not at all. Don't worry about being confident. Why? Because your character's probably not confident. Most stories actually don't have confident characters unless they're the absolute hero of it, and even then they have moments of not being confident. Your job is to go into that room in the emotional state that your character is supposed to be in. But if you're working on being confident, that's when you'll start forgetting lines, because when you work on your scene, in the emotional state that your character should be in, and I say should, meaning there's an emotional zone that is supposed to be your character, not an exact particular feeling no matter what, what you want to do is, if you try to recall those lines from another emotional state, it won't work, because in neuroscience, what ends up happening is when you're working on a scene, whatever emotion you're in, that's actually where the lines get stored. That's where the information gets stored. They've done plenty of studies around this where if a person is in a stressful state, and they've been studying in a stressful state, if they repeat that stressful state during the exam, they'll actually recall more than if they were in a relaxed state. The same thing goes with acting. So that's why being confident isn't that important unless that's what your character is supposed to be, is to feel confident, sure of themselves, big ego, all of that stuff. Then go for it, no problem. So once you've gone through the scene a few times, this could be during your round 2, so your next 15 to 30 minute rehearsal time with your child. The next thing you want to start integrating, when your child's taking the break, it's probably best for you to go off and start going through some action verbs and see how your child was reacting, how you were reacting, because you're also an actor, because you're working with them in this scene, and at least for this time being, consider yourself an actor. What you want to do is you want to add action verbs, about 3 action verbs per page. Some people can handle more. Some people, you don't want to go less than 2, basically. But what action verbs are they are incredible tools that keep an actor present, they keep the work emotional, and they really put all attention on the other character. It basically creates great acting. So I'll give you an example of an action verb. Let's say a director came up to you, let's say you're the actor, and said, I want you to be really angry at this person. Go over there and say, you did this, you did that, you did this, you did that, but be really, really angry. Think to yourself for a moment, could you do that? Probably. Would it be well? Would it be really any good? Maybe not. Now, if the director came up to you and said, I love everything you're doing. I want you to go over there and accuse him. Accuse that person. And just keep feeling the word accuse. So take a moment and feel the word accuse. I want to accuse you. For most people, emotion comes up right away. If that doesn't, there's other action verbs that could work in that circumstance that you might be more personally connected to. But action verbs ignite emotion. Saying things like angry. Angry is almost an umbrella for so many emotions, but action verbs put attention onto the other character, which taking attention off of yourself as an actor is one of the most important things. And it brings up all this emotion. So if I'm feeling accused, I want to accuse this person. I'm putting tons of great emotion onto the other person. I'm in the moment. I'm focused, all of that stuff. So an example of action verbs, given your child's age, they'll know some action verbs more than others. And you don't want to teach them action verbs. The action verbs should be ones that they're already accustomed to and can have some emotion from. So as an example, I've got my cheat sheet right here. Some action verbs would be to tease. Sadly, teasing still, exists, of course. Beg, tease, beg. What else do I have here? I've got tease, beg, and ignore and joke. So if you tell your child, I want you to ignore me while I'm saying this, when I'm speaking with you, and don't show me ignore, just feel like you want to ignore me, and see what happens. You're going to see some surprising things. So that's why action verbs are extremely, extremely important. One of the last tips is getting rid of old theater terminology and language that I feel has really been actually holding back actors in the film and television age, and probably in the theater age as well. A lot of these words were around before acting was what it ended up being in the 18th and 19th century. So why they were kept, I don't know, but I find they're non-emotional, they don't keep you in the moment. And so as an example, one thing that happens a lot in film, and any kind of scene study, whether it's film, television, theater, musicals, doesn't matter, is they say, what is your character's objective? What is your character's objective? So what is your character's objective in the entire play? What is your character's objective in this act? What is your character's objective in this scene? What is your character's objective in this moment? Objective is a word you can use if you're writing a book report or an essay or something. But it's not something you can do when you want to emotionally connect with the material and really get into the scene and discover things about the character and really feel like you're in the character's, skin. Objective does nothing whatsoever. So I changed the word objective to need. What do you need? What do you need in this scene? What do you need in this moment? What do you need from them? I don't say want, because want isn't interesting enough. And as Alfred Hitchcock said, movies are life with the boring parts cut out. So you don't want the regular stuff. You don't want. You need. That's the whole thing. So what do you need in this moment? What do you need from this person? And that that brings up emotion, that brings people in the present, that helps focus them. And I'm not asking you, what does your character need? Because this myth of character being separate or you becoming the character I think, has hurt so many actors. It's unbelievable. What really you should be, you should just be accepting you're the character, because you are the character. When the camera goes on you, you're the character. So that's it. There's no becoming anything. It's simply feeling the emotion, connecting with the other actor, and feeling the emotion of the words that you're saying and reacting to what they're saying. So there's no character per se. So that's why I don't like to say, what does your character Michelle think? What does your character Bristol think? I'm thinking, I ask, what do you need in this? What do you need from this other person? And that keeps everybody more in the moment. Another tip is, don't focus on landing the part. That is similar to whether you did something right or whether you did something wrong. And really try to focus with your child on giving a great performance. Because if they're focused on getting the part, they're not going to be focused as much on giving a great performance. In smaller cities, it's about how many roles you've gotten. That's what people value. But in the bigger cities where there's more competition, it's whether or not casting directors will still see you or see your child, because they don't see everybody. Your child already has to be a good actor for them to really want to see you in some cases. So it's about being able to be seen again by the casting director. That is actually the mark of a good actor, and whether you've been doing great in auditions. Because there's so many reasons why your child won't get the part, and they're out of your control, they're out of your child's control. And only about 10% is really your child's acting. That has to be the most solid 10% possible. But things like height, hair color, hair length, whether your child has blue eyes and the lead has brown eyes and they have to be related, but that doesn't work for the story. There's so many things. So it shouldn't be about getting the part as your marker of whether your child did great. In my opinion, and from a lot of child psychology, the reward is rewarding your child for coming up with so many great ideas, figuring out a strategy for their character, for their scene, and really working on that strategy and doing the best performance they can at this audition. So I don't really like to call auditions. They're just performances. That's all it is. So you're going to go and get a performance. So it's best to start eliminating the conversation or minimizing it as much as possible, whether or not they get the part. Because if their focus is on whether or not they get the part, then fear will overtake their performance completely. So it's just about going there to give a performance. It's not auditioning. They have the part. They have the part while they're there in the audition room. At that moment in time, that part is theirs. My second last tip there are 3 questions. I've kind of gone through them throughout this video, but just to kind of stabilize the whole thing, there are 3 questions you really want to ask your child after going through that first round of 15 to 30 minutes where you've let them play with the character and get a feel for the scene without coming to many conclusions. And again, you don't want to come to a tremendous amount of conclusions, but you want them to explore the scene. It's a big part. So question number 1, what do you need in this moment? What do you need in this moment? So this is a question you ask after your child's first or second break. Start asking them, what do you need in this moment? So what does your character, what you're really asking is, what does your character need in this moment? But you want to make it personal. What do you need in this moment? So let's say the scene is about your child, they're at summer camp and they're afraid to jump into the water. And all the other kids are saying, come on, come on, come on, jump in the water. So what does your child need at that moment? Your child doesn't need to jump in the water, for example. That's the action, but really whatever the need is, it's an emotional need. So your child needs to find a way to be less afraid in order to jump into the water. I want to say be courageous, but courage isn't really a feeling as much as it is. It kind of is, but that can be a debate. So you could just say, well, I need to be strong enough, I need to be brave enough to jump into the water. Okay, that's the scene. That's not how you will be in the beginning of the scene then, because that is what we call the win, and that happens at the end of the scene or that moment or whenever the child jumps in. So before that, what feelings would you be feeling? Well, I'd be feeling afraid. And then, you get into a little bit of a conversation and then you go into the scene. So what does your child need in this moment? Second question is, what is getting in the way of your child getting what they need? So in this particular case, you could be afraid. Well, why are you afraid of jumping in the water? Well, because, this child, etc., etc. And if there's no information as to why, you can explore, why would a person be afraid of jumping into the water? And is there any reason that might make you afraid of jumping into the water in the future? You don't want to manipulate your child so they have a new phobia, but you can, or you can say, how you're afraid of spiders. This is like that. So feel as if, there are spiders in the water and you don't want to jump in. So again, you don't want to give your child nightmares. I'm just giving an extreme example to highlight the situation. And the third question is, ask your child, how do you want the other person in this scene to feel? So if your child is talking to whether adult or another child, how do you think your character wants that character to feel? And you'll see that relates a lot to action verbs. You'll find out that has a lot to do with words like accusing and beg. Well, if I'm accusing somebody, I want them to feel guilty. I want them to just feel like worthless, etc., etc., etc. So ask them, how do you want them to feel in that? And that'll also help highlight some action verbs. And in the end, what you really want to do is you want your child to feel empowered. You want your child to explore things on your own. Preferably, the sooner your child gets comfortable with this process and gets comfortable with working on scenes, you can actually take a break and do all the work you need to do. So this really helps teach them to be independent, but also know how to ask the right questions and also know what to expect on set, because great directors are going to use action verbs. Great directors are going to be asking these types of questions when they know that your child has experience with it. Otherwise, it's going to be a simple, yes, no, over there, okay, smile, and that's okay too. That can happen as well. But the more your child takes these lessons into account at a younger age, the stronger and stronger and the more rich their performances are going to be. And the very last thing is, always make this an environment of play. This is what I teach adult actors as well. Make sure that this is all done within an environment of play, of enjoyment. If you're not enjoying yourself while you're doing it, or if you're not, the enjoyment could also, you could be doing a very sad scene, but if you're not feeling the sadness, if there's not this little hint of excitement in you of like, ooh, that's feeling good, then you have to change things up. This really has to be brought upon from a concept of play because it's an art form. There can be structure, which we've just talked about, but at the same time, if it feels like an essay, the performance will be one of an essay. The performance will not be one of, oh, I felt like doing this. Okay, well, let's try this now. Okay, well, and then they get into the scene. It's not the most articulate way of ending a video I've ever done, but I think you know what I mean at this point. So thank you very much for watching the video. It definitely turned out longer than I expected, but I wanted to be thorough and I wanted you to have something moving forward, both before the workshop begins and also afterwards. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and to you and your child, break a leg.